For much of my life, I have observed a strange paradox. Those who strive the hardest to be good often suffer the most in silence. They do not rage, they do not demand, they do not rebel, they repress. And that repression, over time, breeds darkness far more dangerous than any open sin. Human beings long to be virtuous. They long to be accepted, loved, and safe. But when goodness is performed to escape rejection, it ceases to be virtue. It becomes disguise. The persona, the social mask, begins as a necessary adaptation. We learn early that certain behaviors earn love, while others bring punishment. The child hides anger to keep peace, hides desire to remain pure, hides truth to avoid shame. And so the natural self divides. The acceptable half becomes the persona. The forbidden half becomes the shadow. The more you polish the persona, the deeper the shadow grows. Because everything excluded from the light must find a home in the dark. Society rewards the persona. It praises selflessness, patience, kindness. But when these qualities are used to deny authentic feeling, they rot from within. The smile hides resentment. The politeness hides rage. The gentleness hides exhaustion. This is why so many who appear saintly collapse under the weight of their own virtue. They have mistaken repression for morality. Goodness without awareness is not virtue. It is fear wearing a halo. When you say yes while your soul says no, you are not kind. You are divided. When you forgive prematurely, you are not spiritual. You are silencing truth. When you help others to feel needed, you are not generous. You are avoiding your own emptiness. The unconscious keeps record of every betrayal of the self, and it demands balance. The repressed energy of the shadow will always return, either as illness, projection, or eruption. It may come through sudden anger, irrational attraction, or moral collapse. Not because you are evil, but because life refuses to let you live one-sided. I have seen entire societies collapse under the weight of their unacknowledged shadow. Nations that preach purity often hide corruption. Religions that condemn desire secretly worship power. Individuals who condemn others most fiercely are often at war with their own instincts. This is the law of the psyche. What you reject internally will manifest externally until you face it. Many believe the goal of life is to become pure light. But light without shadow is blindness. The psyche seeks wholeness, not sanctity. To become whole, you must integrate both the sinner and the saint. The good person who refuses their own darkness becomes dangerous. They project their shadow onto others. They call others arrogant, selfish, or immoral, never seeing the same seeds within themselves. This is why moral superiority always smells faintly of hypocrisy. It is virtue infected with denial. The shadow of goodness often hides in service. People exhaust themselves saving others while secretly craving to be saved. They build identities around being dependable, compassionate, spiritual, Yet beneath that devotion lies resentment. Resentment for the self they were never allowed to be. If you have spent your life pleasing others, know this: your anger is not your enemy. It is the voice of the self you abandon to earn approval. That voice will whisper until it is heard. You cannot heal what you will not feel, and you cannot feel honestly while pretending to be good. I do not tell you to become cruel or reckless. I tell you to become whole, to include the parts you have disowned, the selfish, the jealous, the proud, the sensual, not to act them out blindly, but to acknowledge them consciously, because the moment you see them, they lose their destructive power. What destroys people is not the darkness itself, but the refusal to see it. Repression turns energy into poison. Recognition turns it into strength. When I worked with patients who lived in constant guilt, I often found that their guilt was not moral, but emotional. They felt guilty for being human, for needing rest, for wanting pleasure, for feeling anger. They believed goodness meant self-erasure. But the psyche will not tolerate erasure. It demands authenticity, even at the cost of comfort. Many so-called breakdowns are simply the shadow rebelling against too much virtue. The unconscious rises to dismantle the false self. It breaks what was rigid so that truth can breathe again. If you wish to understand the dark side of goodness, study your motives. Ask not what you do, but why you do it. Do you give because you wish to help, or because you fear being unloved if you stop? Do you stay silent because you value peace, or because you fear conflict? Do you serve others because you see their soul, or because you cannot bear to face your own? The shadow thrives wherever truth is hidden behind intention. It does not punish. It waits. It waits for honesty. There is nothing wrong with wanting to be kind, but kindness must include yourself, or it becomes manipulation. If your compassion does not extend inward, it is incomplete. If your boundaries are absent, your love becomes control. The true moral act is not to suppress the shadow, but to hold it in consciousness, to see clearly both the desire to help and the desire to harm, and to choose neither denial nor indulgence. That is integrity, the alignment of awareness with action. I have often said that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The same applies to morality. You do not become good by striving for perfection. You become good by integrating imperfection. To be whole is to include contradiction. To love is to know the capacity for hate. To forgive is to remember what anger feels like and choose differently. This is why humility is the foundation of true virtue. When you know your own shadow, you no longer need to condemn others. You see the shared fragility of human nature. Compassion replaces judgment. Understanding replaces pride. The one who has faced their darkness becomes trustworthy because they no longer act unconsciously from it. They have seen the monster and realized it was not a monster at all, only pain longing for light. This is why the spiritual path is so perilous. Every ascent into light deepens the shadow below. The more spiritual power one gains, the greater the temptation to deny human weakness. Many mystics fall because they mistake transcendence for transformation. They rise too high, too fast, forgetting that enlightenment is not escape but embodiment. To embody the divine is to hold both divinity and humanity without rejecting either. The saint and the sinner are siblings, not enemies. Without one, the other has no meaning. You cannot serve the light without knowing where the darkness lives within you, because the moment you deny it, it will guide your service in secret. You will wound while believing you heal. You will control while believing you love. You will preach peace while projecting war. The good person becomes whole not by purity, but by honesty, by saying, yes, I contain both, and I will meet both with awareness. Then goodness becomes something different, not performance, not compliance, but truth. A truth that includes imperfection, accepts limitation, and still chooses love consciously. When you stop trying to be good and start trying to be real, goodness emerges naturally, not as an effort, but as a consequence of balance. The shadow no longer needs to rebel because it has been invited to exist. This is the work of a lifetime, to hold all opposites within one heart, to know you are both light and dark, order and chaos, giving and taking, saint and human. To live without denying either is to live in peace. So when you feel the urge to be endlessly good, pause. Ask what you are avoiding. Ask what truth you are afraid might surface if you stop performing virtue, and then listen, because that whisper in the dark is not evil. It is the rest of you waiting to be welcomed home.